Welcome back to the channel, folks, where we dive into the wild, wonderful world of men transforming into women in all kinds of fascinating ways. If that's your vibe, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Now let's jump right into today's story. Chapter 11. Michael groaned as he stirred awake, blinking against the soft morning light filtering through the curtains. His body felt different. Not painful, not uncomfortable, just off, like he had slept in a position that wasn't quite right. Something's changed, was his first coherent thought. The sensation wasn't alarming, just peculiar. Like wearing someone else's clothes, except it was his own skin that suddenly didn't fit quite right. He stretched experimentally, noticing immediately how his muscles responded differently. There was a lightness, a fluidity to his movements that hadn't been there before. His joints seemed more flexible, his limbs somehow both lighter and softer. The retrovirus, he realized, his grogginess evaporating. It's working faster than they said it would. He sat up slowly, rubbing his face, only to freeze when his fingers brushed against his skin. It felt smooth. Not just normal smooth, but impossibly, unnaturally smooth. Like touching silk warmed by sunlight. The stubble that should have been there was gone completely, as if he'd never had it at all. What the hell? He whispered, his voice catching in his throat. Even his voice sounded different, slightly higher. The resonance changed. His grogginess faded instantly, and he swung his legs over the side of the bed, hurrying over to the full-length mirror against the wall. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. "Oh shit," he exhaled, the words barely audible. The changes were already so much more noticeable than he had expected. His skin had completely cleared up, every imperfection, every rough patch, gone. But more than that, the tone had shifted, becoming an exact match to Claire's. It wasn't just clear, it was hers. The face looking back at him was still recognizably his, but altered. His jaw was softer, less angular. His cheekbones seemed higher, more pronounced. His lips fuller, his nose slightly more delicate. His eyelashes, when had they gotten so long? I look like someone took Michael Reynolds and ran him through a feminine filter, he thought, tilting his head to examine his face from different angles. Like those gender swap apps. But real. Too real. His eyes, at least, were still his own, the same deep blue they'd always been. But now, framed by those longer lashes, they looked different too, more striking, more expressive. "Small mercies," he muttered. "At least I'll still recognize myself in the eyes." His hair was different too. It hadn't grown much yet, but the color was already changing, lightening from his usual brown to a deep golden blonde. It wasn't fully there, but it was undeniable. He ran his fingers through it, surprised by how silky it felt. "Blonde," he murmured. "I'm actually turning blonde. John's never going to let me hear the end of this." He could already imagine the jokes. How many blondes does it take to have a baby? What do you call a blonde who's actually a guy being transformed? The possibilities were endless, and none of them were flattering. Michael slowly raised his hands in front of him, studying them. They weren't fully transformed yet, but they definitely looked more delicate. His fingers seemed just a little slimmer, the veins on the backs less pronounced. They weren't Claire's hands yet, but they were closer than they had been 2 days ago. "At least I can still open jars," he said to his reflection, trying to make light of the situation. But when he flexed his fingers, he noticed they didn't feel as strong. The power in his grip had diminished slightly. Well, maybe the smaller jars. Then there was his body. He stepped back slightly, looking at his reflection more critically. He had slimmed down a lot. His frame was noticeably smaller, and when he turned slightly to the side, he could see how much mass he had already lost. His shoulders were narrower, his waist trimmer. Where did 20 pounds go overnight? He wondered aloud, pressing a hand against his abdomen. The muscles were still there, but softer, less defined. His chest looked different too, not feminine yet, but there was a subtle softness developing that hadn't been there before. He turned, examining his back and shoulders. The V shape he had worked years to develop was melting away, his upper body becoming more slender, more feminine. Goodbye, gym membership, he sighed. I don't think bench presses are in my immediate future. The doctors had warned him about this, told him that his body would begin rapidly shedding unnecessary mass. They had even said he probably wouldn't feel the need to eat for a few days, that his body was prioritizing energy for the transformation. And they were right. He should have been starving after not eating much for 2 days, but instead he just felt empty. Not in a bad way, just in a way that made him feel like his body was still figuring itself out. Using my own fat stores to rebuild me, he muttered, like some kind of bizarre self-cannibalization. Efficient, but deeply unsettling. He looked down at his pajama pants, which now hung loosely on his hips. When he had put them on last night, they had fit perfectly. Now, they threatened to slide right off. Note to self. Invest in drawstrings, he said with a weak laugh. Or start borrowing Claire's clothes sooner rather than later. The thought sent a strange flutter through his stomach. Wearing Claire's clothes. It was inevitable, he supposed. As his body continued to change, his own clothes would become increasingly ill-fitting. But the idea of actually wearing women's clothing, Claire's clothing, made the transformation suddenly seem more real than ever. Michael took another steadying breath, then turned away from the mirror. He couldn't stand there staring at himself all day. John and Claire would be wondering where he was. And besides, he needed to show them what was happening to him, how quickly the changes were progressing. He grabbed a housecoat from the nearby chair, slipping it over his shoulders. It already fit differently, looser in some places, slightly oversized. This used to fit perfectly, he mumbled, adjusting the shoulders. The fabric hung differently on his frame now, his narrower shoulders failing to fill it out the way they used to. He caught his reflection again and paused. There was something oddly right about how the silky material draped over his new form. Something that looked natural, elegant even. Stop it, he told himself firmly. You're still Michael. For now, at least. But was he? The person staring back at him from the mirror looked less and less like Michael with each passing moment. The retrovirus was working quickly, reshaping him, remolding him into someone else entirely. Tying it around his waist, he headed for the door. As he reached for the doorknob, he noticed again how different his hand looked. The changes were subtle but undeniable. His fingers more tapered, his wrist more slender. Soon enough, Michael would be gone completely, replaced by Emma. The thought should have terrified him, and part of him was terrified. But another part, a part that grew stronger with each passing hour, was curious, fascinated by the transformation taking place within his own body. He opened the door and stepped into the hallway, feeling suddenly vulnerable. How would John and Claire react when they saw how much he had changed overnight? Would they be shocked? Amused? Would they still see Michael in there somewhere? Or would they only see the beginnings of Emma? Only one way to find out. It was time to go find John and Claire. He took a deep breath, straightened his shoulders, which were noticeably narrower now, and walked toward the sound of voices coming from the kitchen, his bare feet silent against the plush carpet of the hallway. Time to face the music, and whatever jokes John undoubtedly had prepared for this moment. Chapter 12. Michael descended the stairs, still adjusting to the odd lightness in his body. Every step felt just a little off, his balance was slightly different, his movements a bit less heavy than they used to be. It wasn't drastic, but it was noticeable. It's like my center of gravity has shifted, he thought, carefully gripping the banister. Like I've lost weight, but only in specific places. He felt strangely graceful, his movements more fluid than they had been just days ago. Was this how Claire moved through the world? With this strange, innate elegance that seemed to come from nowhere. Great, he muttered under his breath. Next, I'll be walking runway shows in Milan. As he reached the bottom of the stairs and stepped into the kitchen, Claire looked up from her seat at the breakfast bar and smiled. Wow, she said, tilting her head slightly. I swear, your skin looks even clearer today. Her eyes widened slightly as she took him in more fully. Actually, it's not just your skin. Your whole face is changing. Your jaw is softer, your cheekbones more pronounced. Michael smirked, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, I noticed that too. It's weird looking in the mirror and seeing not me staring back. He felt oddly self-conscious under Claire's scrutiny, like he was being assessed, measured against some standard he couldn't quite grasp. It's like looking at a bizarre family photo, he added, trying to lighten the mood. Like, here's what Michael would look like if he'd been born female and related to Claire. John chuckled from where he was pouring himself a cup of coffee. Well, you're not fully Claire yet, but give it another week. You'll be doing double takes every time you pass a mirror. I'm already doing double takes, Michael replied. Triple takes, even. This morning, I nearly jumped out of my skin when I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. For a second, I thought someone else was in there with me. I can only imagine, Claire said sympathetically. Though I have to say, the changes suit you. You make a pretty convincing start of a woman. Just what every man wants to hear. Michael groaned. Though I suppose if I have to turn into a woman, at least I'm turning into an attractive one. Careful with the compliments, John warned with a smirk. Claire's head is big enough already without you validating her genetic superiority. Claire reached over and swatted her husband's arm. My head is perfectly proportional, thank you very much. Michael rolled his eyes, but before he could respond, Claire slid a tall glass toward him. Here, she said. I made you a smoothie. I know you're not hungry, but you need something in your system, even if it's just nutrients. Michael eyed the thick pink concoction with suspicion. Is this some kind of special transformation support drink, or just a regular smoothie? Just a regular smoothie, Claire assured him. Though I did add extra protein and some supplements Dr. Carter recommended. Your body is working overtime right now. It needs fuel. Michael took the glass and sipped at it. It was surprisingly good, fruity, cold, and refreshing. He nodded in appreciation before setting it down. Well, and so... Not bad, he admitted, though my taste buds feel different. Everything's more intense somehow. Your senses are becoming more acute. Claire explained. Women generally have a more refined sense of taste and smell than men. You'll notice it especially with sweet and bitter flavors. Great, Michael muttered. So when you say chocolate cravings are intense, you're not exaggerating. Not in the slightest, Claire confirmed with a wicked grin. Just wait until you try good quality, dark chocolate with your new taste buds. It's practically a religious experience. Claire studied him for a moment longer before commenting, your hair's definitely getting lighter. It's not fully there yet, but it's noticeable. She reached out, almost instinctively, and ran her fingers through a strand of his hair. The texture's changing too. It's softer, silkier. Michael tried not to flinch at the unexpected touch. It wasn't unpleasant, just different. His scalp felt more sensitive, more responsive to the gentle contact. Michael sighed. Yeah, I saw that too. Feels weird. How weird are we talking? John asked, leaning against the counter with his coffee. Like I got a bad haircut weird, or my DNA is being systematically rewritten weird. Definitely the latter. Michael replied dryly. It's like my hair is betraying me one follicle at a time. Brown yesterday, slightly less brown today, and apparently full-on blonde by next week. The blonde gene is dominant in my genetic profile, Claire explained, as if discussing the weather rather than the complete transformation of another human being. Your body is prioritizing the expression of my dominant genes first. Lucky me, Michael muttered. I always wanted to find out if blondes have more fun. Oh, we do, Claire assured him with a mischievous twinkle. Just not always the kind of fun that's appropriate to discuss at the breakfast table. Claire gave him a reassuring smile. You'll get used to it. But for now, you'll need to start wearing the wig when you go into work. Michael groaned. You're really making me do that already. Thought of wearing a wig was somehow more disturbing than the changes themselves. It felt like a costume, a disguise, as if he were actively participating in this transformation, rather than just being swept along by it. Unless you want Janice from accounting, asking why your hair is suddenly getting lighter, and your face is getting prettier, John pointed out. Because you know she notices everything. She does have an uncanny ability to spot even the smallest changes. Michael agreed reluctantly. Last month, she commented on my new shoelaces. Who even notices shoelaces? Claire smirked. Unless you want people asking why your hair is mysteriously changing colors overnight. It's not just the hair, Michael countered. My whole face is different. I look softer. My jawline isn't as sharp. My cheekbones are higher. How is a wig going to hide that? That's where makeup comes in, Claire said matter-of-factly. Foundation, contouring. You'd be amazed what a skilled application can do. Makeup, Michael repeated, his voice rising slightly. You want me to wear makeup to look more masculine? Isn't that a bit ironic? Welcome to womanhood, Claire replied with a grin. Where we wear makeup to look more feminine, less feminine, or any variation in between depending on the day and occasion. Michael sighed in resignation. She had a point. Fine, he conceded, but nothing excessive. I don't want to look like I'm trying out for the circus. Trust me, Claire assured him. By the time I'm done, you'll look exactly like you always did. Well, a slightly clearer-skinned, better-rested version of you, but still recognizably Michael. John checked his watch. Speaking of work, we're leaving in an hour, so you better go get ready. Michael exhaled through his nose and stood up. Yeah, I'm going. He moved to leave, then paused, struck by how different his body felt in motion. His hips seemed to sway slightly, a natural movement he wasn't consciously controlling. Is it normal that I'm walking differently? He asked, glancing back at Claire. I swear I'm not doing it on purpose, but my hips are swaying. Your center of gravity is shifting, Claire explained. As your hips widen and your shoulders narrow, your natural gait changes to accommodate the new balance. It's completely normal. So I'm going to start walking like a woman without even trying. Michael asked, alarmed. Eventually, yes, Claire confirmed. Though you can consciously modify your walk if you're trying to maintain your male persona for now. Great, Michael muttered. I have to consciously remember how to walk like a man. Just what I needed, one more thing to worry about. As he made his way toward the stairs, Claire stood as well. I'll come with you, she said. Michael raised a brow. Why? He knew the answer, of course. But some part of him, the part that was still clinging desperately to his independence, to the last vestiges of his masculinity, needed to put up at least a token resistance. Claire grinned. Because you're going to need some makeup if you want to still sort of look like your old self. And right now, you have no idea what you're doing. I can figure it out, Michael protested weakly. How hard can it be? People do their own makeup all the time. Sure, Claire agreed with exaggerated patience. And the first time they do it, they look like a toddler, got into Mommy's makeup bag. Do you really want to go to work, looking like you lost a fight with a cosmetics counter? When you put it that way, Michael conceded reluctantly. But nothing crazy, okay? Just enough to make me look like me. Cross my heart, Claire promised, making the gesture with exaggerated solemnity. Though I reserve the right to teach you a few tricks for later, when you're fully transformed. You'll need to know how to do your own makeup eventually. One identity crisis at a time, please, Michael replied, starting up the stairs with Claire following close behind. Just think of it as learning a new skill, Claire suggested, her voice light and encouraging. Like when John taught you to golf. I was terrible at golf, Michael reminded her. Yes, well, Claire laughed. Hopefully you'll be better at makeup. You're certainly starting with a much better canvas now. Michael groaned but didn't argue as they headed upstairs together. He had a feeling this was going to become a very common occurrence. This is my life now, he thought with a mixture of resignation and disbelief. Being taught how to apply makeup by a woman, whose face I'm slowly growing into. Perfectly normal Tuesday. As they reached the top of the stairs, he caught a glimpse of himself in a hallway mirror and paused. The changes were even more noticeable in the natural light streaming through the window. His features softer, more delicate, his skin practically glowing. You know, Claire said, following his gaze. For someone who's terrified of this whole process, you make a surprisingly attractive woman. Great, Michael replied dryly. I'll add that to my resume. Skills include organizational excellence, critical thinking, and apparently being an attractive woman. Claire laughed. The sound warm and genuine. Come on. Let's get you looking presentable. Or should I say, let's get you looking like your old self. The irony isn't lost on me. With a resigned sigh, Michael followed her toward her bathroom, where he suspected a whole new world of feminine mysteries awaited.